A scenic view of dairy cattle grazing in a pasture is a common roadside sight in Michigan and throughout the Great Lakes states. These cows are raised to produce milk, an important agricultural product of the state of Michigan. Here, the colder climate, short growing season, and unpredictable weather make raising grain and other crops a risky proposition. Dairy farms depend on grasses in the pasture lands, which can tolerate colder climes. This makes the business of raising dairy cattle profitable in the north. The cow was domesticated centuries ago in Europe for meat and milk. The Holstein is the most common breed of cattle used for dairy production. This breed is characterized by its black and white spots and its ability to produce large quantities of milk. A full-grown Holstein cow weighs about 1,500 pounds and is capable of producing 15 gallons of milk a day. The cow is a primary consumer. Its diet consists of grasses, which is mainly cellulose, the most abundant organic molecule on the planet. Most organisms cannot digest cellulose because they lack the necessary enzymes to break it down. The cow is a ruminant, meaning that it has 4 stomachs. The first stomach is full of microorganisms that have a symbiotic relationship with the cow. The microorganisms help break down the cellulose, and the cow provides them a home and food. A few decades ago, most families lived and worked on farms. Today, less than 2% of the population in the USA lives on food-producing farms. Even though fewer people are producing food, we still have an abundant supply at a low cost. In fact, people in the U.S. today spend an average of 7% of their incomes to buy food, a sharp contrast to the 37% that was spent in the 1930s. How can so few farmers supply so many people in the U.S. and around the world with enough food? The answer is efficiency in production and labor-saving methods. Just like any lactating mammal, dairy cows need extra energy to produce milk. 62% of the energy intake of a lactating cow is used in milk production. In order to produce milk, cattle need comfortable surroundings and energy inputs in the form of feed. Dairy farmers give cattle a mixture of different types of feed, providing them just the right balance of nutrients to help them grow and produce milk. Wet feed is called silage. Silage is chopped plant material stored in an upright silo or bunker. Traditionally, the silo was a very tall vertical structure. But farmers found production of wet feed in a ground-level bunker to be more efficient than in a vertical structure. The bunker is easier to work in and is safer for the farmer. By holding the wet feed in a closed environment such as a silo or bunker, anaerobic fermentation occurs, producing an acidic environment which prevents spoilage and kills botulism bacteria. Lactating dairy cattle require a tremendous amount of energy to sustain them and produce milk. They eat about 100 pounds of feed a day and drink about 30 gallons of water. But cows are also very efficient at using waste products as sources of energy. For example, cottonseed is a byproduct of the clothing industry. Oat hulls, beet pulp, and old cereal are waste products from food processing. Distillers' grains are byproducts of ethanol production. These are all examples of waste that are fed to cattle rather than just thrown into landfills. On average, the U.S. public throws away almost 30% of the food they buy every day. Dairy cattle can efficiently convert these wastes into useful energy. Cow waste is composed of high concentrations of nitrates and phosphorus. When these nutrients enter aquatic systems, such as streams and ponds, they promote plant growth, which increases the risk of eutrophication. Traditionally, farmers would recycle the cow waste into the cultivation system by spreading manure onto fields before plant growth. This manure not only added nutrients, but also added organic matter, which increased the water-holding capabilities of the soil. This practice also reduced fertilizer costs. However, through much of the year in Michigan when the ground is frozen, the cow waste is vulnerable to environmental conditions, such as snow and rain. The precipitation carries the nitrogen and phosphates into the water systems, increasing the rate of eutrophication. This has caused serious consequences in large water systems throughout the U.S. Traditionally, dairy barns were built for human comfort, not the comfort of the cattle. Dairy farming was very labor-intensive. The farmer had to feed and clean up after the animals and milk twice a day. The barns were enclosed and kept warm. This resulted in poor air quality, which led to health problems for the cattle. But cattle can handle cold weather better than they can handle hot temperatures. So modern dairy operations use a freestall barn, which allows sufficient air movement and more comfortable temperatures for the animals. The freestall barn also has a manure pit into which the waste falls and is stored for 6 to 12 months. By storing the manure, the farmer can avoid spreading it onto frozen fields. The manure can be spread in the spring when the soil is prepared for the growing season. This greatly reduces the amount of runoff and water pollution, and the crops are able to take up the nutrients when they begin to grow. The process of the plants utilizing the nutrients from the cow waste is an example of a natural filter system. Freestall barns help modern dairy farmers use waste more efficiently while providing a comfortable and healthy environment for the animals. Modern dairy farming uses energy-efficient methods, recycles waste products, and produces milk for human consumption. This promotes healthy people and a healthy environment.